A lot of Warzone players think that being more aggressive means blindly pushing as fast as possible. In reality, players who are better at finding information and using it to their advantage ultimately win more fights. The goal of today's video is to show you how absorbing information is the absolute key to becoming a faster, more successful player. Today we're going to break down a 20-kill gameplay, and I'm going to show you how finding that information is critical. I also want to talk to you about target visualization, which is a game sense concept that helps me make smarter predictions. So if you're here for the real nitty-gritty tactical tips that I always bring to the table, I need you to do a huge favor and tell the YouTube algorithm that you like this stuff. Tap the like button, tell me how I'm doing down in the comments below, and most importantly, hit subscribe so I know you guys are serious about your Warzone improvement. The first thing that I teach people who are trying to get more kills in Warzone is to be passively looting and aggressively looking for a fight, not the other way around. If you notice here, I've got a gun, I've got a plate, and I am pushing gunfire. I'm not taking bad fights, I am taking safe angles to engage players early on in the game, which is going to be the easiest time to get kills because players don't have their loadout. So get yourself an automatic weapon and put yourself in positions to take out players and start checking those corners and get in the open. You can get a lot of free kills from fly-ins just by being available to see them. Just like this guy here, he's flying into HQ, and I'm going to be very aggressive about pushing up the steps and pushing his teammates. Now, this is where I want to talk about target visualization, as I know that this guy is on the other side of the steps because I just knocked him. But I'm also getting the information that his teammates are likely inside of HQ, and one of the places that people go when they land HQ is straight to the bunker. So I'm going to make sure he's thirsted out of the game, confirm with those resurgence pings, and then peek the window. And as soon as I do, I am centered on that staircase because I know that they are going to react towards that. I am not going to wait. I'm going to put successful shots on them, confirm that there's two, continually back off, and pull the right trigger on that automatic weapon. Another thing that I talk about in aggressive gunplay is a technique that I call gun game, which is where I constantly am looking for a secondary weapon on the floor to swap to during or shortly after a gunfight. And if you notice here, I reload the Growl, immediately switch to my pistol, take the SMG off the floor, and then evacuate the building. Immediately go back to the fly-in audio cue, and I hear the tin roof. Tin roof tells me he is on top of Grandma's house. I am immediately pre-aiming that fly-in as they return and getting successful gunfire and thirsting him, changing my position, using the plates to move on, and we have started the game off with 4 kills just by being ready and willing to push players with ground loot. Now it's time to get back to our team and see what they're getting involved in. I'm coming up to the fight with very little information, but I do have somebody pinged on the boat on the minimap. I'm going to circle around the outside and I'm going to clear these rooms because I have no communication that there's no one here. I'm logging the information on fly-ins that I see over at living quarters, but then I'm also trying to assist with wiping the teammates from the boat. We're doing what I call controlling the drop, and I've worked the outer perimeter of some of the players that like to attack our drop, and I'm pushing them away with these defensive tactics. One of the most contested POIs of Factory is HQ and Grandma's house, which I just cleared out, and we're already getting a bunker buster on the buy station. I'll be honest with you, I did not see this guy until I was almost all the way to the top of the steps, and I was able to immediately evacuate back from that, but we had to be careful because of the bunker buster. I'm communicating that there is a player on the steps, and then I am aggressively going for the loadout so that I can get myself into the action. I'm going to take cover underneath overhead because I have lots of dots, and we have an audio cue that they're landing on our loadout, which is something a lot of players will do, thinking that they can catch you opening the box. So you have to manage the timing of that and the defense of that and know exactly what you're doing when you're pushing your loadout. Make sure you're using your heartbeat sensors on the floor. They're free pieces of intel until you can get a UAV. In the meantime, Sloth has put up a UAV for us, and I'm trying to control the top of factory because I still have a dot over at HQ. I'm encouraging them to leave us alone, and that's a very important part of controlling your POI, but I'm immediately returning to the next set of dots, which is where I want to talk about pacing. And you can't talk about high kill games without having proper pacing. A lot of times when you're watching content creators, there's a lot of misconception that you're playing against players of lesser skill because they're not returning fire, when in reality, the momentum of that early game and how quickly we just force cleared our POI, got our loadout, and now we're moving on teams that are still in the slow process of acquiring cash and getting their loadout. So we have dots on the minimap. We know the closest place for me to fly to. And I know that the fastest way to get there is to zip up to the top of factory and then fly across the red roof, which is going to give me the ability to peek this window out on the other side of the peak here. And I have a clear line of sight on them at the buy station. They are doing exactly what I thought, and we are not going to let up. We are going to put immense pressure on them getting that loadout. I'm holding the best possible angle I can, backing off. As soon as I knock one, I'm stimming, not plating, rotating into the building, getting the thirst, pulling back out, and baiting that enemy to forcefully defend their loadout, which my team is now pushing into trade on that bait. It is a very aggressive tactic, and if you do this with teammates on a regular basis, you will get better about pushing teams as a whole. Now, once you clear that team, you have to be ready to move to the next set of information. And when you don't have it, you need to be moving towards getting a UAV. So Pink puts up an advanced UAV, which is loads of information. And that's the flow that you need to have, is as soon as a team is wiped, you need to be putting up those UAVs to get you to the next fight as fast as possible. Now we're in zone 2 with 6 kills, and we're going to start pushing the next set of dots. And we catch teams on the regain. And this is where it is incredibly easy to farm enemy teams that are still trying to get their loadout. They sold the beginning of the game, they had a rough start, and now they're just over pushing those loadout crates. And I know that there are a lot of people that have something to say about holding loadouts, but holding loadouts is a tactical play. And if you don't do it, to be honest with you, players are going to do it to you. Here's another visualization tactic that I really think players need to build into their game plan more, is when you're pushing a house, you need to be centered on the hot zones of that building. I'm peeking that, I'm putting the shots on them, and it immediately knocks them, and then I'm flushing with my lethal as I push up. I'm not going into the bottom because I want to thirst him before he gets back up. He gets up, and then I'm able to take him out with my SMG. I am holding our own loadout because there is one there, and I'm using the angle of the banister to get as many shots as I can. When I don't feel comfortable in a fight, remember, I am hugging that. I'm ready to hit the nope moment in a millisecond and use my escape plan to rotate back around the outside, communicating to the team that I'm under pressure, and then I'm also returning the favor to both teammates as it's happening to them. Something that I have really struggled with throughout the course of playing Warzone is how to knock enemies in smoke. And it's taken forever for me to force the habit, but you have to do more hip fire and less ADS and smoke. Because as a controller player, you're going to continually rely on aim assist, which is going to throw you off because it is not working in there. So the spray and pray method does work, but you need to manage your recoil and back off of the fight and wait for visibility as the player jukes you inside of the smoke. We're on great pacing here. We're at 11, and I see more blue streaks down at the bottom loadout. So I'm communicating that, and I'm putting successful shots, breaking the target, and I see that he's moving right. So when I talk about visualizing, once again, he's going down the hill. I know that he has to go one of these 3 directions, into red, down to the water, or into factory. He might even hook it back into tunnel. So I'm going to do a cutoff route, and I see him jumping down further and further, and I'm able to successfully get the kill. Small visualizations about where enemies can go on their getaway is the best way to continually funnel players as they try to get away from you. I spent a lot of time talking about how to get away, and we talk about changing directions all the time. But in that situation, I had the complete upper hand. So if you want to know more about how to get away from enemy players. If you guys missed my most recent escape artist video, I highly recommend you check that out on ways to get away from players that are pursuing you just like that. Now, in that push, I lost control of the power position. We've also lost 2 teammates, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm able to knock another player, but I don't have a visual on anyone directly over on the steps. I get melted by Mike Myers. He comes down and thirsts me, and I communicate to Snake that he's the last alive. But that's okay. Dying is part of the game. This is the lesson that I like to teach people in my videos because content creators die too. And I think you guys should see my thought process from an aerial perspective. Is I died over here, and I naturally would want to fly over to my guns. I don't know if Mike Myers is still hanging out there. There's absolutely no indication that that is safe because my teammates are all on the opposite side of the POI. I have 2 in headquarters, 1 in factory, and there's a loadout crate at Grandma's house. Now, my thought process is I'm going to land in the POI with the highest concentration of my teammates, but I'm also going to be aware of the amount of danger that they're in. So my thought process is a majority of the players will likely be on this side of the fight, given that my teammates are on the right-hand side and the enemies will likely be coming from their loadout, because remember, there were 2 boxes at Grandma's house. So I'm going to land in on the window and I'm going to provide cover. And as soon as I come into this window, I get an enormous piece of information. Pink is being pushed by at least 3. 1 in the left corridor and 2 on the right. So I'm going to push the one on the left and try to save my teammate, but I am immediately going to pop towards my gun game method and pick up their SMG. Now, as I do that, I'm going to anticipate the reaction of the 2 players that were on the right-hand side of the room. And I'm going to mash my slide button directly into the enemy with the remaining ammunition that is in the SMG. And as you can see, we're able to take Mike Myers out. But if you remember, there was 1 more green suited character in that building. So I'm escaping with plates and a loadout SMG, and I am not sticking around for the 3rd. Once we have control of the situation, we've reloaded, we've replated, we're assessing what we have, and then I'm going to throw the decoy grenade out into the open to draw their fire, and then I'm going to visit the loadout in the company of my teammates. I'm seeing the bounty that's on factory, but I'm also seeing that Snake is by himself now with multiple dots. So I'm going to get my self-revive, my UAV, and a couple plates, and then I am going to get another UAV so that we are again ready to push because we are on 14 kills. Pushing up to assist the Snake, pinging the other self-revive, but I am hearing the tapping of tile, which means they're on my level. And I'm doing the best thing I can while also absorbing a very critical piece of information. If you notice on the mini-map here, we have a bounty with his 2 teammates over at factory. We have 3 in the open that are now pushing likely their loadout at Grandma's, and we are now engaging the loadout team. I'm hearing the tapping inside. Rather than swinging out of the open and exposing myself to multiple enemies, I'm going to shift inside, pre-aim the middle of the room, and hit successful hip-fire targets, stimming away from the fight and being careful that Lighthouse is not pushed over to HQ. I'm going to the next level, replating, resetting the gunfight again, and looking for the other 2 enemies that were on that team. We have control of the situation. There's pings over on the rocket, and there was a bounty at factory. We now have a dot on the mini-map still at HQ, so I'm going to start playing a little bit slower. Circle's gotten smaller. We still have 5 teams. We're on 16 kills, and we have a lot of information to absorb with this mini-map. So right now, we have 1 guy on prison, a full team in HQ, at least 2 teams at factory because there's 5 dots, and what looks to be control and/or tents. But we have a fairly decent position in the center of the map. So what that means is factory is coming to us, and we also have to defend ourselves from HQ. It looks like factory is starting to assemble into 2 full teams down there with a buy station and doing their fights. So what I like to do here is think about how they're going to have to come. That team is now rotating out wide left towards Red Roof, and we still can't push out and fire against that team because HQ is going to get curious. So we're using strategic positioning, looking at the remaining team over at factory, and starting to lay out a tactical game plan on how we're going to fight HQ. And just like I presumed, their curiosity is starting to push us over here at Grandma's. And we finally found our green-suited man from before. Unfortunately, random goes down. We are holding our position in the bottom of Grandma's and waiting for the push. We get our teammate back. We're defending their fly-in, and I'm baiting shots to see if I can get somebody to come up the steps from either factory or somebody from HQ to look. See him on the roof. I'm not sticking around. I'm getting back inside, replating, and now I'm starting to think about how can I get into zone safely. I don't want to move towards HQ because we know there's somebody on the roof. I'm getting up arrow indicators on the top of prison, which means I need to take the shortest distance into prison, which means I need to get up the steps in some fashion so that I can do the crossover into the bottom of prison. I am planning my route before I leave the building, and I am fully aware that there is more than one team also having to make this circular pull with me. But I'm waiting just a little bit longer to see if I can pick up one extra kill before I leave, and I find one on the loadout crate, and I'm able to take him out. Now I'm going to practice my gunfight reset, going inside to safety, resetting all my assets, and random is able to take out another one at the buy station. Now it's time to move in. And just like I thought, taking shots from over by HQ, holding the doorway, looking at the angle that they would likely push me from, and assessing how many players are left. Now this is the part where I kind of focus what I want in this scenario. I'm on 18 kills. I want the 20 bomb. That is my number one goal. I would also love to win the game. So how can I do that effectively without dying prematurely? I need to clear this circle, and it's not safe to clear out into the open. I have 3 dots that are in prison. So I'm going to move towards that fire. But if you notice, when I leave the room, I'm going to check right and left, and then I'm going to push towards the middle of prison. But I need to be careful. There could be somebody hiding in the cells. Find an enemy rezzing over here in the gas, but see an important piece of information here. On the left window, there was a crossover. So I'm going to thirst, but I'm backing off the fight. The guy from the window takes out the sloth, and then I swing around to wipe that team and effectively get the 20. So now there's 3 versus 2, and we don't have circle slide. And this is where I want to talk finally about visualization, as we need to think about how 2 teams are going to get to where they need to go. We kind of got screwed here. No lie. We are on the far right side. We need to move to the far left side. There's a buy station on the way. I would like to get the sloth back, but it is not a priority at this point, because if I was in their shoes, I would be on the roof of Lighthouse, either in the window or on the very top, and I would be holding our crossover and staying there as long as possible. So as I move out to peak, I am checking the window, the bottom, and ready to slide in, and my instincts are correct. I'm able to get a few shots. They are doing a very good job of successfully hitting me. I'm communicating that, and I'm starting to think about how can I get right as safe as possible. I want to break them. I would love to get a knock. More breaks. I'm sliding out towards the vehicle to use it as cover, and then I'm watching the fall down that they're going to have to do, and then taking cover behind the wall. They patiently waited until we made the crossover and put more successful shots than we were able to put on them, and they were able to knock 2 of us. So Snake is holding back in the gas, and I'm seeing something very punishing here. As on the mini-map, one of the 2 has moved up in zone, and they are holding me as I come down. I'm able to res. I switch immediately to my SMG and then slide towards him in as aggressive fashion as I can, and I'm not able to get those final shots because I don't correctively push forward on the aim stick, and he's able to take me out. Unfortunately, we end up losing the game to these guys. They had better position, they had better self-control, and the game gave them the slide. I hope this helps you guys embrace the fact that aggressive gameplay is possible, but you have to think about what you're doing in each and every fight. It is very important that you change bad habits, and there are a lot of bad habits that you can have in a gunfight based on the information that you have. And if you don't have information, you have to be really good at finding it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I always say, keep building, keep adapting. Sit rep out.